do something different, I thought I'd ask you the questions, and just a lot of you already know this, so but a little give and take. So unmute yourselves, folks, and get ready for some questions. When and by whom was Shelterbox started?
Some guy in England.
Yeah.
That's right. That's good. Any idea what year?
30 years ago?
1993.
Nope.
1995.
Close.
2001.
Oh, you're all close, but it was Tom Henderson in 1999. He was watching a program on TV, and it showed a disaster, and these people providing aid to the disaster victims. And what they were doing is they were throwing bread off a truck, and he just felt like the poor disaster victims had lost all their dignity. And so he vowed that he was going to do something different and provide for people in disaster cases. So he took his idea to his Helston Lizard Rotary Club, which is in Cornwall, England, and promoted it. And they did produce it as a 2000. That's why people kind of think it started in 2000, but really the thought came out in 99. So, okay, so now moving on, when and where did Shelterbox first respond? In other words, which was their first country that they responded to?
I'm going to guess Haiti.
Nope.
You're close. You're close.
What?
Philippines then.
Nope.
Got to be the Philippines or Haiti. They have
Closer. You're closer.
If it's Haiti, then it's Dominican Republic.
Yeah, no, wasn't Haiti, and it wasn't. You were wrong. Haiti wasn't close. I'll tell you, it's India.
Close in terms of when we first deployed. That's all. Not geographically.
Okay, so India was the first deployment, which was quite interesting. And it's been very difficult. They deployed in response to an earthquake, which caused flooding in 2001. And it's been very interesting because we haven't deployed to India until just last year. We did deploy last year, but it's the first time since that 2001 incident. So that is kind of just a point of interest. And does anybody know when Canada joined Shelterbox to be a project, another country involved to make it
2004.
2002.
Close again.
2003.
Right. 2003.
By 1 year each time.
Okay, now there's somebody here that should get this one. Who first brought awareness of Shelterbox to our Rotary Club in Kenora?
Ron Noseworthy.
No, not John Berenger.
No. They're on the program here today.
Gordon LeMaistre.
Gordon LeMaistre.
Gordon Deb. So they were at the International Convention in Copenhagen. It was the year that Ron was incoming president, 2006. And it was so ironic. We didn't know they were there. We met them. And Gordon, we thought pretty exciting meeting somebody from Kenora, never mind your own club. Anyway, we were chatting and Gordon was saying, oh, there's a really neat display. It's all about Shelterbox. I think you guys should go over and have a look. So we did, but Gord was really the one who first, and then Kenora did donate for those first couple of years before Ron and I actually even became involved. And why did Shelterbox choose shelter? Can you help answer that question?
Give them dignity.
Dignity, yeah.
Well, it's one of the social determinants of health is housing, but I don't know if that's.
Yeah, no, that's another factor. Yeah.
Well, sheer survival statistics show that if people don't have shelter within 72 hours with no shelter and they're out subject to the elements, the vulnerable people begin to die, little children and elderly, that sort of thing.
I wasn't asking you. I'm going to mute him.
Expanding on someone's answer.
Well, it's the first good answer.
Yeah, it was a good answer. Any other ideas? Okay, I'll fill you in my notes. But anyway, as Ron mentioned, without disaster, vulnerable begin to die within
Shelter.
72 hours. Disaster victims need a place to sleep. They need a place to feel safe. They need a place to be at home, and they need a place to feel in control. A means to begin to rebuild their lives. So shelter is really important. And the big aid organizations told us early on that we should choose one focus and just concentrate on that. Don't go don't deviate from that. So what kinds of shelter do we provide? Can you list some of our means of shelter?
Well, the shelter box for one.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got a new one, it's called a shelter kit or something like that?
Yep,
That's
shelter
right.
kits.
Carry on, Fred.
Well, the tent is certainly a shelter, so
Yep, our
That's
iconic
one.
white tent. Yep,
now, aren't there some tarps now too?
yep. The tarps are in the shelter kits. Yep. And you're right too, Kelly. We often deploy just tarps at times. We did that with the Rohingya refugees. We provided, it was decided, we had to do what everybody else was doing, but the tarps that they had were really poor quality. They were black. I don't know if you saw those first visions of the Rohingya refugees. They all have these black tarps, which just absorbed the heat. It was like 30 degrees. And so we gradually replaced them with our white tarps, but for the Rohingya, our first deployment was tarps and solar lights, which were huge because again for safety and in such crowded quarters. Okay, the only one that wasn't mentioned is the flex tent. We have it's called a flex tent, and it's built for winter climates. You can actually put a wood stove in it, and it has a place for a chimney. So I think that's the only other one there's another one is we purchase UN tents, and we use those in some places where we're deploying. They have to be standardized tents, and so the UN tent is it's like a box tent, and so we would deploy those to those areas. Also, we use those in for the Rohingya refugees. We set up children's centers and medical centers and a women's center, and it was really quite interesting. I remember both our team, I wasn't able to go into on the deployment site, but they explained that in these centers, how heartwarming it was. In the children's center, the children were starting to laugh and play games, and it was so heartwarming. And then they also talked about the women, how important it was to have a women's center, because for a lot of the refugees, they were really badly abused, and the women wouldn't talk to anybody else. They wouldn't tell other people because they would be shunned then if people heard of especially their sexual injuries. So in the women's center, they would talk to each other, and then there were aid workers there who were just specifically set up. Now my husband's telling me I have to move on, but I don't know that I'm finished my questions. I have one more question. This is our presentation, excuse me.
Wrong again.
Anyway, what is not in a shelter box?
Food.
Right. One other thing of importance.
Water.
Right?
Clothes.
Sometimes we do actually put clothes in. We put hats and stuff for winter. I'll tell you, it's medications. We don't include any medications. Yeah, so, okay. And the last question, who were the second and third Canadian shelter box response team members?
Ron and Claire Noseworthy.
Right. The Boston one was number 3rd.
Oh,
Okay, now he wants me to move on to
mm,
Shelterbox response team members. Ron and I have deployed to many disasters, and Rotarians are often our first contacts. They provide the invaluable support, support with translators, accommodation, transportation, protection. We need that, government contacts. We've seen firsthand the desperation families feel when they've lost everything, and Rotarians provide invaluable help in our distribution chain of life-saving shelter and aid.
I wanted just to let you know a little bit about Shelterbox and the COVID situation. It's obviously made things a lot worse everywhere around the world. Some of the statistics, I mentioned approximately 70 million people recently or currently have been displaced from their homes because of conflict. That's just conflict. Another 30 million by physical disasters. But of the 70 million for conflict, 84% of them live in the least developed countries in the world, and where they've got very little support. So, you know, COVID is impacting the hospitals and the healthcare systems in these underdeveloped countries. Millions of families are crowded into refugee and displacement camps in the third world. And Shelterbox is very, very much involved. We often, it's often too dangerous, it has been, to send our own Shelterbox response team members in, but we work with trusted aid organizations on the ground. And there are several that we've developed good relationships with. So it's a big part of what Shelterbox is doing now. Okay, next one. Yeah, this is just a quick summary of, since Shelterbox started in 2000, 21 years ago, this is an indication of where we've been able to help people around the world. And we're up to over 2 million people now that have been helped. Next one, please. And this is currently where we're working. 8 different countries that Shelterbox is currently working in right now. And again, we indicate how this conflict is just getting, in terms of what we're dealing with and displaced people, is just bigger and bigger. As you can see here, 5 of the 8 countries have displaced people because of conflict. Next one, please.
Whoops.
Oh, we didn't switch that.
Oh,
That's
okay.
an old one, but that's
Okay.
all right.
Do I have to?
Just remind me.
Okay, so this, when we were in China, what we did was we did education and distribution in one stage, and then after we would try to stop by to see how people were doing. So we were driving through this town and we saw one of our tents set up in the foreground, and so I said, stop, I want to get a picture of that tent. So we stopped, and as we were walking back, this lady came out and she recognized I had the same symbol on my shirt that was the Shelterbox symbol. And so she came out and she just gave me this huge hug. Well, I was still a half a block from where her tent was. So I was trying to, of course, we didn't have any interpreters with us at that point. So I'm trying to point to her tent and say, anyway, so we did this dance all the way down the street. And this is the story of this lady. And Ron, we wanted a picture of her and the tent. And it was very, very sweet. The interpreter then arrived and explained that her 12-year-old son had been at our distribution and had listened to all our talk, and he'd set up the tent beautifully. And she was so proud of him. And she was a single mom with a group of little kids. So it was
interesting. Often these tents are complicated to set up. So that's a big part of what we, the response team members, do, is to make sure people know how to set them up. They're very good tents. So the fact this youngster was able to do it, he did a really good job. Okay, Sheila, the next one.
Okay, this is Malawi, and what I'd like to highlight in this picture are these are the children's bags. In every box there are there are 50 of these children's bags, and they're distributed to the kids to assist, for us to remember just how overwhelming these disasters are to kids. And there are 2 points to this. I have a friend who every year, hint, hint, gives one of these, pays for one of these bags, these school bags, for her grandchildren, for each of her grandchildren, as part of the Christmas, as a part of her Christmas giving. And if you look closely, you can see that there are children cradling. One off to the left here is cradling the twine. There's one who just has a single pencil, and it's like they've received $1 million. The two girls who ended up getting the actual backpacks, they received those because they had good attendance and good grades. And so it really means a lot, our equipment. And we just have no idea how tough it is for these folks who've lost everything. Next slide.
This is the HERO program that I think our club is aware of. Donations by Rotary clubs, $1,200 for the year, gets a bronze, $3,600, which is effectively 3 boxes of silver, and then $6,000 for gold. And if you can go on to the next one, Sheila. These are the award-winning clubs in our district from last year. And you can see there's quite a number have contributed to the bronze, but our Kenora club is, again, we're very proud of the fact is the only club who contributed enough for a gold. Next one, please.
15 boxes. That's good.
Yeah, and you know, we've got Giving Tuesday coming up again, which we will talk about more. But again, last year, our club's donation of close to $5,000 was used for matching to encourage people and clubs to match, and it resulted in a 7-fold increase. $35,000 were donated to Shelterbox as a result of people looking to match. And I think the final slide is next.
And this is a thank you. When I look into these children's eyes, it just makes it all worthwhile. I remember so well how them trying to thank us, and they just have no means to really say what it means to have somebody halfway around the world who cares about them. And so on behalf of these children that you'll never meet, all the people that you'll never meet, thank you for supporting Shelterbox. It means a lot.